people might want to look back at again, because I think it can be quite intricate, can't it, Lizzie?
Yeah, I think with this one, this side of it is a bit more self-explanatory. Like it's not. I think the next week will be slightly more technical in the fact of you'll need specific amounts of water and urea to mix the dyes and stuff. This week, I think this is quite nice. This is the waxing, but obviously we're doing it with PVA, not wax. But this is just quite nice. Well, I think next week's nice as well. It is a nice process. Yeah, sorry, I'm just logging on to something just so I can.
I got to stick some bread in the toaster.
Don't leave that in there. We don't want.
But yeah, as ever, if you have a question at any point, please do shout up or put it in the chat, and we'll make sure it's answered. Because
yeah, there might be quite a few questions. Yeah, and I'm happy to answer those at any point. And I'd quite like it to be more. I don't want it just to be me talking for an hour and a half or whatever, because that just gets really boring. And also because it is quite like once we've done the setup and once we get going, it really is just kind of painting. So it might be quite quiet, but it'd be nice maybe then to ask any questions, or because it could just end up being pretty silent and then and not really anyone saying anything. So yeah, just put something in the chat or whatever, or yeah, it'd be nice to hear your voices. So I'm going to start off by just explaining what's in your kits. I did send an email out, but I do get if you've not had time to have a look at anything or have a go at designing. Have any of you done any designs or had a think about?
I'm afraid not. I've been unusually busy over the past 7 days, trying to sort stuff out.
Yeah,
so
same here.
I had a quick look inside the kit and thought, yep, there's stuff in there, and I haven't had a chance to look at it since. So I'll be one of those who, well, I am one of those who always looks at the videos afterwards and then works from them then, because I can do it then at my leisure or while they're in my own time.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Don't worry at all.
No, yeah, that is absolutely fine. But if you did want to do it live with me now, then it would help if you did have design on the pattern paper. But first, I'll talk you through what's in your kits and the setup. So the first thing to do, so in your kits there should be 2 different types of paper. There should be a dot and cross paper, a pattern paper, and that's for drawing your design on. And there should also be some plain newsprint paper. There should be a couple of sheets of that, or at least a big sheet that you can fold into 2. And that's what goes down first, the newsprint. And this is kind of set up for both weeks, really, just so so you don't have to move the design. But I mean, you can move it and put it back, but when you do move it and put it back, you need to make sure that your silk is still lined up with the design underneath for the painting afterwards and for the waxing. So the first job on the setup, if you can see the screen here, we've got the pattern, the newsprint paper, the plain paper is down first. And then underneath that is the design. So it's the 2 layers of newsprint, the design on top, and then the plastic sheet that you have in the in your kit. That's over the top of the design, because then obviously if you put in wax on or PVA or whatever, the plastic stops it from getting onto your design. And then on top of that is the silk square, the patch that you've got. So that's just the setup. But so let's carry on, talking about what's in your kit. So you've got the silk square, the patch, the 2 pieces of paper that I've already talked about, the plastic, you should have 2 paintbrushes, you should have a little pouch of PVA glue, you should have, what else is in there? The dyes, you should have 4 packs of dyes, so you should have 3 colours, you should have red, blue and yellow, primary colours, and then 1 bonus colour. You should have a packet of urea, which is for mixing with the water, and it helps the dyes fix into the material. I won't talk you through any of the, because it can be quite complicated and numbers to remember of amounts of things for the mixing of the dyes. We'll do that next week. And you should have a marker pen and some gloves. And I think that's it. And so we have, obviously, batik is a technique used all around the world. We use it quite a lot in costumes. I did send you a PDF with some examples of work we've done in the past, and you have all seen these sorts of examples before. These are other parts of the missing patch. I'll put them on here so you can see as well. But so these are done actually with PVA glue and not wax. Some examples. But this one is one that I did, and that is with wax, because it is it's much easier, I found, with wax, because it does bleed into the fabric much more easy. That's not a good English at all. But I brought this out as well to show you. This is a chanting which they use in traditional batik, and it's basically like a little well for the wax and then a little nozzle that it slowly drips out, and you can control how fast it comes out, and you can draw with it. So we have used those, but mainly when we're doing batik for big projects, we just use a paintbrush and a wax pot. But so it's up to you really if you want to make a design onto paper now, or whether you want to think about it and you just want to watch. That's completely up to you. But as I've explained the setup, to get started, you need to have the newsprint down first, and then the design on the top, and then the plastic sheets on top of that. Some tape would be great to tape everything down so it obviously isn't moving around everywhere. But if you haven't got that, then you can use books or something to sort of weigh it down in areas. So newsprint, design, then the plastic, and then the silk laid on top of that. So you should always be able to, I know it's a bit difficult here for the lighting, but you should be able to see, I can see the design here, you just can't see it very well on the screen.
Pop that in the chat, Lizzie, the order that you set up. So the newsprint, the design, the plastic sheet, and the silk on the top, just so people can refer to it if needs be.
Yes. And on the PDF I sent you, you don't have to be amazing at drawing to design anything really. There's lots of different ways you can design something. You could draw a simple design, and then you could scan it in. So just like a simple flower, you could scan it in, and then you could print off, say, 10 of those, and then arrange them as like a repeat pattern. And you could literally just, even on the square piece of pattern paper you've got, you could arrange those with tape or glue tack or whatever in a specific way. And then you've got like a really nice repeat pattern that's the same every time, obviously, because you've scanned the image in. Or you can, like I did think I showed you this. I have had a go at this with PVA, and I don't know if it was 100% successful, to be honest. I think one thing that I've realised, I added too much water to the PVA, so it made it too runny. So this was the, I'll just show it in here, was the initial design that I did. this was on the PDF that I showed you, and I had a go at batiking it with the PVA, but it was my first time. I've never used the PVA before. This was just a technique that we developed specifically for the missing patch, so we weren't sending out hot wax. Oh, the camera's moving all over the show, isn't it? That's horrible.
Oh, it's just gone out of focus a little bit.
I know, it's really horrible. I don't know whether it's just me moving around and I keep knocking it.
Oh, it's better now. That's
better.
fine now.
Right, I won't go near it then.
That's fine.
I'll try and stay as far away as possible. But yeah, so that's something to something you will need actually. You will need a bit of water to mix with the PVA, but not too much. You literally need about 2 teaspoons. Yeah, 2 or 3 teaspoons. It's literally just a little bit. You want it so it's not really gloopy, but it's sort of like, I don't know if you can really see, whether you'll be able to see this consistency. I'll hold it right up to the camera. It's sort of like,
is it like cake icing?
yeah, it's exactly like cake icing. That's the kind of consistency you want. So yeah, if you are doing this real time with me, then go and grab some water. And you probably need some scissors to get into your little PVA packet. Oh, and you will need some kind of jar or Tupperware or whatever you've got to put it in and to mix it with the water. What's everyone feeling about the process then? Are you designing something now, or are you gonna look at it at a later date, or what she feels?
I'm just going to watch at the moment.
Okay, that's
Don't
absolutely
mind, because I'm afraid I had a bit of a disaster this morning, so I haven't been able to get kind of in the frame of mind.
that's fine. No worries. That's absolutely fine. I'm happy to watch. I'm happy to, yeah. Basically, it's going to be a bit like show and tell then, and I'm going to.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I'm just making notes as we go along.
That's absolutely fine. Let me make sure I've got everything.
Sorry, could I just ask?
Yeah.
Are we doing the design on this paper or the other one?
It should be the dot and cross paper. That's what.
Okay.
That's the pattern paper. Yeah, that's for the design. Just so you can easily find a center point.
Okay.
And so you can measure easy if you want it to be exactly perfect. But it doesn't. It can be completely abstract. It's totally up to you what you go with your design. This is a design that we've done in the past for costume. This was the Blocko costumes that we designed. I mean, this is a weird shape of it. And as well, if you make any mistakes, but you still want to, you're still going to use the design, it really doesn't matter. You can cover the lines that you draw in that you don't want with masking tape or Tipp-Ex, or so if you do make lines in and you think, oh, that looks horrible, I don't want that, you can very easily just sort of block them out. Because I did that on my design and decided that I really didn't want something there again, and then covered it up. And so, yeah, that's not anything to.
Are these just ordinary fabric dyes?
They're Procyon fabric dyes. So they're powder form, and then you mix them with the urea water, which helps them. The urea helps them to sit in the fabric. Yeah, we've just always used the Procyon fabric dyes.
Because I want to try and get a green. For what I've got in mind, I need a green.
Well, you will be able to easily mix a green with the yellow and blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about mixing the dyes next week.
Okay, that's fine.
Right, I'm going to go for it. It's always scary, that first moment of applying the wax, or especially to such nice silk. Applying PVA to beautiful silk.
Does using hot wax, does it work in basically a very similar way?
Yeah, and it's almost a bit more immediate than the PVA, because it really does seep into the fabric quite quickly. I found with the PVA, you have to keep it a bit more gloopy, otherwise it spreads into the fabric, which is not what you want. You want it to basically stay to the lines that because if it seeps into the fabric, then you won't be able to, it'll affect it'll keep, because you want to stop the dyes from bleeding, basically. So you design, that's something to think about in your design as well. If you have you want shapes that you can paint inside, basically, because then you're not going to be able to have you're going to have to merge the colours all the time, instead of having, oh, I want this bit purple, or I want this bit pink or orange or whatever. But which you can do. You can do really nice things with the dyes where I'll try and show you, where you do blends. I don't know if I've got anything like that, maybe you'll have to see it on. Where you blend different colours together. Can't really see it on that one. Oh, this one's a nice one of that, actually, because there's darker orange on the outside. So you can do nice things where you blend different colours together, but and also on this purple, they've done a nice job of going from a pink to a darker purple. But you do want those shapes so you can get different colours as contrast, because then it could just end up all sort of running in together and being a similar sort of colour. And as well, some colours mixing isn't what you want. If a green mixes with a red, then you're just going to end up with brown. So that's something to think about.
Andy's asked whether he's okay to iron it, and he is, isn't it? Because that actually makes it better, doesn't it?
Yeah, iron it before you putting it down onto the design is a really good idea. Just because then it sits nicer. I didn't iron this one because it was pretty, I'd literally just cut it off the roll, so it's quite nice. You do want your design to lay pretty flat as well. If it's like got loads of air underneath it and it's bubbling all over the place, then it's just going to be a bit harder to paint and to keep, because you don't want your design to shift a lot, because then obviously your lines aren't going to match up. So that's something to think about as well. And as far as what you actually choose to put on your design, literally can be anything, whatever you fancy. I just went for a simple sort of sun design on this. For this one here. But as well, I wouldn't worry if you're really not into drawing, because you can find things. Or you can print off photographs and then pick lines out of them, or different images. It's completely up to you. What's good about using wax for batik is that the brush holds the wax for quite a long time. You don't have to keep dipping it, so you can get a really nice smooth line without having to keep dipping. But with the PVA, you do have to keep top up.
So obviously not putting you on the spot, Lizzie, but talking a little bit about the tradition, I thought might be interesting, because it's something that Cabasa and Global Grooves use a lot, isn't it? Batik for costumes, for puppets, for flags. Where does that come from?
So one of the main centres for Batik is Indonesia, but where it actually comes from and whether it's from India or Asia originally, no one really knows. But I think it's something that's been done for such a long time that it's sort of, no one really knows where it actually fully originated from. But yeah, Asia generally. It's been used in India, Southeast Asia, and other parts of Asia for, I don't know how long. I'm rubbish with numbers and remembering things like that, but for a long time. And it's amazing to see how they do it still traditionally in places like that, where they won't even have a design, they'll just freehand, and they'll use things like chantings, or you can get slightly bigger versions, and they can go at it for quite a while, and they'll have a burner somewhere with the wax on, and then they'll fill the wax up, and it's quite amazing to see. I mean, I've only seen videos of people doing it like that, but yeah, basically it's a technique that my colleague Emily, who works with Global Groove, she learned it from a group who also work in outdoor arts in Carnival, Connecticut, and they make flags and costumes. And she spent quite a long time learning the technique with them, and that's basically how it started, or how at least we then carried on doing the technique with. So she did a lot of wings, made butterfly wings with this Batik technique. And yeah, we've been doing volunteer days and projects and ever since, really. It was quite nice to find a way of being able to make packs and give people the opportunity to do this technique at home, and also just simplify it a bit so children can do it as well. So that was quite nice that we found a way to make it safer and slightly easier for people to just do it in the home. Yeah, I'm not super knowledgeable on the background of the technique. It's something that
quite versatile as well. Like, it can be any color, it can be any kind of style. Is it quite a cheap thing to do if you were doing it en masse, making costumes and such?
I mean, it can be cheap depending on, say, because you can use cotton as well. You don't have to use silk at all. You can use it lots of different materials, and you can use cotton. It's not as, it takes longer because it's a thicker fabric, cotton generally, a different weight. It takes longer. You have to use more wax on it, and it's not quite as satisfying as painting silk because it's so fine that wax just runs right through it. But I've forgotten my train of thought, what I was going to say then.
It seems like it can be something that can be done en masse, because I know I've walked into the studio and there's loads of people, obviously pre-COVID times, but lots of tables set up and everyone working together, and it looks like it's quite fun, can be, you know, carrying on late into the night.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say actually. That, yeah, it can be done, it can be cheap, but the only thing is that it does take quite a lot of time, or especially intricate things can take a lot of time. When we did Project Phoenix, we decided it was a great idea to design and paint over, I think we were planning on doing over 30 flags. I think in the end we did around that in the end, to be honest, between 25 or 30, I think we've got of different designs, and really quite intricate ones as well. The reason why I would say it's costly to some extent is just time, because it does take quite a lot of time, and also there's not just the time in painting it, waxing it, and then painting it. There's the time in processing it afterwards. So you do have to. There is another process after you've put the dyes onto the silk as well, where you have to steam the fabric, which also helps the dyes stay and not run afterwards. So you have to steam and rinse it. So steaming, we actually have like a homemade steamer in the back here that we use, and that involves wrapping the fabric up with quite a lot of layers of newsprint to protect it from, because in the steaming process the dyes will run a little bit, and wrapping it up in the layers of newsprint just helps the dyes not running to the silk. Like the paper holds the dyes instead of it getting into the silk in places that you wouldn't want, because then that can just end up with a big muddy mess. So that's a process in itself. Yeah, and we do that here as well. So there is quite a few different processes. I'm not sure how, well, because I know that in traditional batik they'd use a lot of natural dyes, but I've never really looked into how that they would make the dyes stay in the fabric. But that's something to look into. There's probably questions in, because I'm not an expert at all, but I bet there's things where I think, oh, I'm going to look up that, and I'll let you know next week. So I will. That'll probably be quite a nice thing to do, actually. Maybe at the start of next week, I'll share some of my findings on traditional batik with you next week.
Brilliant, that would be good. And you mentioned Pinterest as well, Lizzie. I presume that's a good place to go and find inspiration and see, what can be done with it as a craft.
Yeah, there's lots on there. I use it a lot for just ideas and just imagery in general, and inspiration. Yeah, I do think it's quite good. You can get lost in a wormhole in it for sure. It's very easy for that to happen, but I do think it's quite good just as a little tool to have a look for inspiration. But if I do find anything else that I think, oh, that's great, there's a really good website on Batik, then I'll make sure that I email that to you, or let you know that next week.
Brilliant, thanks.
So really, yeah, all I'm doing here is just following the design underneath with the, and all you just have to be careful is applying too much at once. So I'm using I'm literally using the same brushes that you've got. I'm not like cheating with some mad brushes. It's just the same cheap ones that you've got. But they're quite good for applying the PVA, actually, because they're quite stiff. They're not really soft. If they're really soft, I think it just makes it slightly more difficult to apply the glue. As well, a good technique, I mean, this ruler's huge, which is a bit silly, but using a ruler, if you place it, instead of placing it flat onto the fabric, but if you place it onto the fabric like that, you can get quite a nice line if you then just run your paintbrush. Yeah, in Batik, as I said before, your brush always holds quite a lot of wax, so you don't need to keep dipping it in, but with the PVA, I do think you need to keep. So kind of a straight line there, it's not the best. You might find that the lines that you've designed, maybe they're a bit too thin to actually then batik. They might be what you apply with the glue on the top might might be quite thicker than your design underneath. So that's just something to think about as well. Like, I put quite fine lines in this bit of my design here, and I'm probably not going to be able to get all of them in. And as well, you probably don't want to get all of them in, because the more wax or glue you apply, the more white there is going to be. So with all these lines here, instead of doing every line, I'm just going to do every other one, because then you're still going to have an area to actually apply the dye to. Because obviously it's a resist process, and where you apply the dye, where you apply the wax isn't going to have any dye on it. It's going to stop the dye from seeping into the fabric. It's very therapeutic. It is quite a nice, especially with hot wax, but it is still nice with the PVA. But yeah, I would say just make sure you don't add that much water. I think with the design that I attempted a few days ago, I added I'd probably say it was about 30 millilitres of water. It was a bit too much. I thought you needed a little bit. I was going for a bit more of a runny consistency, and it was not working at all. It was just seeping into the fabric. So just make sure you're only adding, I just add it a teaspoon at a time, really, just a couple of teaspoons. I think, yeah, it was 2 or 3 teaspoons I got it to this consistency, but I did have maybe slightly more glue than you. So, yeah, you just want it, as Sophie said, a bit like cake icing. Like,
Sorry, I was just going to say, when you're applying it, if you made a mistake, are you able to, what's the best thing to do? Is it like, can you let it dry and then try and pick it off, or that?
You can't really, once it's in, and there's not really much you can do about that. I would say that maybe the only thing you can do about that is make it work for you in some kind of way. But sometimes the imperfections make it nice as well, because it is sort of a really nice hand drawn process, that sometimes the imperfections, I think, yeah, they're part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I completely get the upset if you blob a massive bit of wax or PVA on a bit of your but yeah, no, once you've put it on, there's not really much you can do about it. With wax, you can sometimes the wax doesn't go all the way through, so then you can essentially maybe pick a bit like the top layer of the wax off, because you want it to go all the way through. And sometimes that doesn't happen for whatever reason. Your wax wasn't hot enough, you didn't have enough on your brush, and then what you do in that scenario is you flip the design over and then just go over it on the back, so you're making sure that you've got that strong layer of wax that the dye isn't going to penetrate. But with the PVA, I think the nature of it really is that it because it's glue, it really sort of, it is going through the fabric. That was a really blobby bit. So yeah, do be careful not to have too much on your brush. at once, because you will get big blobby bits. Yeah, and when you're designing, do just think about, I did say that this on the PDF that I sent out as well, do think about what's going to be white. So here I'm making sure that the iris and the pupil of the eye I haven't got any wax on it, and the rest of the eyeball that is white has got the wax on it, because that's going to be white. But obviously this is a sun as well, so it's not like it has to be superhuman in some way. But we did have that problem when we designed some flags of Indian gods for the that was for part of the Project Phoenix that we did, and so there was I think there was about 8 or 9 Indian gods that we designed, so like Vishnu and Ganesh and Shiva, and it was somebody, it was a graphic designer who we know who designed the designs for the flags, but they'd never done batik before. So when they did the designs, they didn't think about the eyes at all, and they'd done the sort of black lines around the eyes. And as when we came to batik them, and it was stupidly late at night, someone had just like filled in the pupil of the eye with white, and it was like, oh, they're just going to have a huge white eye, they're going to look awful. So what we ended up doing then in the end is embroidering bits of the eyes afterwards, because they just looked ridiculous. But yeah, so that's just something to think about. What will be black on your design is obviously going to be white.
That must be so hard to sort of trick yourself. You must probably just get used to it and thinking in that way. But yeah,
It can be a bit confusing, because you're thinking, like, I found it, it was quite good actually, designing from a photograph, because it made me think, oh right, yeah, like I want to make that black line there, I want to make black, because obviously that's, oh yeah, but it's not going to be black. If I want it to be black, I will have to block it out in some way. So I will have to do thin wax lines around it, and then it will be black, because I'll put black inside it, but it obviously will still then have white around the outside. Yeah, it's just something to be aware of.
I guess it's easier if you're a photographer, if you're used to dealing with negative images.
Yeah.
yeah. If you've got a dark room, you'd be used to that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I used to have. Yeah, I sold all the gear. I wish I hadn't now. But I could easily, I could easily get it back secondhand.
I feel like for anyone that's going to wait and do it at a later date, it's a really nice thing to do when you've had a bit of a stressful week and you need a few relaxing, couple of relaxing hours. It's a nice thing to do. It's sort of a shame really at the minute, that, because normally there's always a batik project going on here, and we generally have our doors open for people that want to come and volunteer and normally it's just nice to have people around a table chatting and having a brew and a biscuit and batiking, and it's kind of a shame. I remember actually when I was looking for images for the the little document I sent out to you, I found a really nice picture of a friend, Nina, who came to volunteer with us because she's kind of a regular at the Vale. And it was a picture of me and her just like laughing our heads off, batiking at the same time. We looked crazy, but it was just quite nice to see. It sort of upset me a bit that, you know, that's not life at the minute. But
it will be soon, I'm sure. It will be again. And of course, anyone here who's interested, you know, make sure that you're signed up to the Global Grooves e-newsletter, and we always put out our shout outs for volunteers for all the batiking through that, and obviously on social media as well. So keep your eyes and ears peeled.
Yeah, how do I do that? Is there a link somewhere?
Yeah, let me put the links to the newsletter in the chat. I won't be a second.
All right, great.
quite exciting here at the minute because the capital project, the work that's the redevelopment of the Vale is actually started this week, which there's been talk of it for so long, but it's actually started. So there's actually workmen around and about, which is really exciting. It might be that you end up going over the design lines underneath. Well, that's fine. It might be that you just then have to, it's more making sure that the line that you're creating with the wax or the PVA is a nice line, is nice and smooth. So even if it's not quite the same as your design underneath, sometimes the marker that you've used is much finer than what you're going to be able to achieve with the brush and the glue. So yeah, don't worry about that. And just make sure that you're getting a nice smooth line. It's a beautiful day today. So clear outside. That's nice, having the sun shining through.
I'm in my cellar, but I can see the sunshine from a distance.
While I'm sitting, I can lift my head and I can look out of the window. I can see the trees, the bare trees across the street, and the blue sky.
That's nice.
Yeah, you do need it's quite good to have natural light. So on a sunny day, quite nice because you can really see, because it sort of shines as the glue sits in the fabric. So it's quite nice having good natural light to be able to see that happen. And if you do have any questions when you're when you come to do this for yourself, and do drop Sophie a line, or do they have my email address, Sophie? Can they have my email address so they can
Yeah, I think you've been copied into some emails, so everyone should have your email address. But when I send this video out this next week, I'll make sure that your email address is visible. Is that a vacuum cleaner that's just gone on in the background, or is it the computer?
Sounded like a vacuum cleaner.
That's all right then, as long as it's not the computer.
It wasn't here though, I don't think. I think it was, sounded like a hairdryer or a vacuum cleaner.
Oh. It's really relaxing just watching you do it.
It is quite a relaxing process. It is really nice. I do think hearing people's feedback from getting the missing patch, because it is quite a complicated process to some extent for people who haven't done it anyway, and to get all of those different packets of things in the post, I was thinking, God, is it going to stress people out? Are people going to be like, I don't know what to do, this is complicated and crazy? But from people's feedback, I do think people actually really enjoyed the process, and it is really quite nice. Like once you get your head around, okay, yeah, the wax is going to be white, and just the simple little aspects of the technique, I do think it is really quite a nice therapeutic thing to do. One thing to say as well is that with using hot wax, the wax dries pretty much straight away. Like wax does, it dries quite quickly, doesn't it? Whereas the PVA takes a little bit longer to dry, which I found actually when doing a design last week. I did the PVA the night before, and then went to try and dye it the next day, and it just wasn't. I wasn't really having any good results at all. It was the piece that I designed from the photograph, this piece, and I just didn't have strong enough lines. I think the PVA was a bit too runny, so it seeped into the silk a little bit too much. And also, I didn't know this, but from talking to my colleague Emily, she suggested that you need to wait at least 24 hours for the PVA to completely dry. You have to make sure it's completely dry in the silk, whereas with wax, it dries pretty much immediately.
But that actually looks like a watercolour.
It does look like,
doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
So if you wanted a kind of a watercolour effect where, you know, the colours can merge, then you could use your technique from that. Yeah, have a watered down PVA. Yeah,
definitely. And you do get you can get a watercolour kind of effect by blending the dyes in a specific way, or not properly blending them, so they're a bit more like dappled to some extent. So if you are going to do this at a later date, maybe don't do it on Monday night before Tuesday to come to dyeing it on Tuesday, just because then obviously the PVA's not really had a long enough time to dry completely. So yeah, that's just another thing to think about.
When you're using wax, do you actually paint it on, or do you use one of those little bulb things? I forgot what they're called.
Chantings, they're called.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, that's a different shape to the ones.
You can get a ball one. Yeah, that one's more like a boat shape. It holds a bit of wax. But yeah, you can get the little ball ones.
It looks like my garlic crusher.
It does look like a garlic crusher, yeah. So it depends really on the design and the detail. So these are very good for lines. It's much better and easier to use a brush and a ruler to do lots of lines. But these are good for fine detail, and they're good for more organic sort of shapes, because you can move it around really quite easily. Okay. So it's a bit of both really. When we've done flags in the past, some of them have been really high, like really intricate detail, so we have used these, but also a lot of the time we have specific I can't remember, they're not synthetic, they're hair brushes that we use for the wax, that they hold quite a lot of liquid and wax, so that they're really quite good for when you've got sort of, for designs like this anyway, because you've got thick lines and you need a lot of wax for these lines. Yeah, so mainly we do really use brushes, but we have used chantings in the past. I'd love to see people doing the traditional technique though, in India or Southeast Asia. I would really love.
I got a book, it's called The World of Flowers. It's an adult colouring book. And so I've just been looking through, are there any suitable designs? I mean, they're far too intricate really for that technique, I think, unless you were used to doing it. But I thought, well, if I kind of made it bigger, the image bigger to fit the silk, that would be quite a nice one. I don't know if you can see it because I'm kind of in the shade of it, aren't I? Round that way a bit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're very intricate.
A bit. I don't know.
Bird.
You see it at all?
Yeah, is it a
Yes,
peacock?
it's a bird.
Some kind of bird.
I would have preferred it to have been a peacock, mind you, with a nice tail. That would have been nice. But I don't think, I think it might be representative of a peacock, but it's not really a nice one. But yeah, so I could do something like that, or at least adapt it anyway to the, maybe.
Yeah, it did look quite intricate, but you can definitely just pick certain lines.
Yeah. Yeah. Mind you, some of these things in these books are a little bit, well, eye-boggling because they're just so tiny. I've got one there which you won't be able to see, but it's just covered in little tiny leaves, and there's no way I'm going to have the patience to do that. So,
Somebody gave me this last year.
yeah.
So it's,
Brilliant.
and you're right, they are very, very intricate.
Really intricate, yeah.
Yeah. We need a children's colouring book, really. Or at least I do.
I suppose you could try some of these designs and adapt them, simplify them.
Yes, yeah. And get some ideas, some shapes, some flowers, like flowers. Yeah. Quite nice.
That seems to be a good one.
Okay. Yeah.
You could adapt that and
Yeah.
make it simpler, trace it.
What's that one? Can't see. Oh yeah, leaves and
Yeah.
The green man? No?
No, it's not the real man. It's kind of an abstract. It's I can see, looking at it, I can see flowers, I can see leaves, I can see butterflies. But I think this would lend itself if you took some of the finer detail out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got some tracing paper left over.
I have some of the collection of diving. I can show you when I travel. I bought it. This is one of the.
oh, you've got some pieces of batik. Oh, look at
Oh,
that.
wow. Yeah.
This is.
So,
This is.
Oh yeah.
This is one of my collection, and I have other one.
is that Chinese?
Yes, when I travel, I usually got something. And this is the other one. Can you see that?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
That's beautiful. So
Yeah.
And then the other one, I love moose. And this is a very big one.
Oh, wow.
Oh yes.
Wow.
that's gorgeous.
This is my collection.
It's really effective with just the black and white and then little
Bits
pops
of
of red.
red.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lovely.
Thank you for that, sir. They were lovely. as I'm going as well with the PVA, I'm finding that doing an outline is better first before you then go back to do some finer detail, because it's letting the PVA, giving it that little bit of time to dry. Because otherwise, say here on the these little rays of the sun design that I'm doing, there's some finer details of lines in here, but as I attempted to do that on one down here, but because I had quite a considerable amount of PVA on the edge lines, as I was coming across to do those finer detail lines, they were just bleeding into each other because the PVA was still quite wet. Whereas I think if you give it that extra bit of time to dry, then you can go over to the finer details. That's what I'm finding anyway. But I think every design is different, and you'll sort of just find a way as you're going. every time that I'm dipping the paintbrush back into the glue pot, I am just slowly getting rid of, because you don't want, if you've got, see how it's just dripping off the paintbrush there, you don't want that to happen on the silk. So I'm just, every time, just, you want it to be quite loaded with glue, but you don't want it to have that big drip, because you just can't control that, and then it's just going to drip everywhere onto your silk.
How long have you been batiking, Lizzie, would you say?
I'd never done it before coming to work with Global Brews in Cabasa, which was about 4 years ago now, on a project called Creative Carnival, where we made large-scale lanterns and puppets for Mosley Light Festival, which is an event that that was the last time that happened, actually, in 2017, 18, something like that. So I've been working here for around 4-ish years, and I think I did my first batik probably about 3 years ago. I think it was for Project Phoenix. But before that, I'd never done it before. So yeah, I'm by no stretch an expert at all. But it is a lovely technique. But I think if you're a painter, it's not very dissimilar to other painting techniques that you used to. Although you do have to have quite a steady hand, and you want quite a continual line, which I suppose is different to some form of to watercolor or oils. You can't keep applying and changing, because that is just the nature of it, especially when you're painting on the wax. At least anyway, you want a continual line, and you want it to be quite steady and a similar amount of wax through that line, and so you're not getting those heavy blobs or the different lines, like the different thickness of line. What I mean. But yeah, it is a lovely technique, and I do think that anybody can do it really. I suppose the more like how you get better at it is having more intricate designs every time. So it's more the designing process that I suppose is the harder bit. You can go very simple on the design. And I suppose how you improve is then, working with finer lines every time. But that is quite hard to do, I think, with this PVA technique. It is a bit more blobby, for want of a better word, but it is a bit more, the consistency of it has to be that bit gloopier for it to sit on the fabric.
Has anyone got any craft-based or arts-based New Year's resolutions? Anything they'd like to try this year or learn?
I've been attempting bead embroidery and embroidery. That was my, I started a couple of projects last year with that. So I'm just, I think, going to keep developing that and look at different embroidered techniques. I was actually looking at punch embroidery, and I was thinking at some point I might attempt to make a cushion or a rug with punch embroidery, which is where you have a tool which you basically punch the thread through, and it basically creates lots and lots and lots of loops, and you can do, it's like a rug making technique, but you can make pillows, cushions with it, or more finer detailed things. But I've bought the punch to have a go at doing that. So that's my next. I need to get some different sorts of yarn, because I've only been working with sort of fine embroidery. But yeah, that's my next project. But anybody else?
Well, I've got three things. One, I want to actually try and learn to play a tune on my guitar. At the moment, I can master about three, maybe four chords, but I can't do a tune because I can't do the fingering without actually looking at my fingers, which kind of sort of spoils the rhythm and everything. I want to come up with some kind of artwork that I can frame and put on my wall, because everything I have now was done by other people. I want to attempt to finish my rug.
Look at that.
Which has been, it's one of those, it's kind of make it up as you go along.
nice.
Lovely. What's that made out of?
It's like a latch hook. Let me show you the side. That's what I haven't finished.
Oh, that's lovely.
Wow, that's amazing.
Now, I've been looking a lot of, it's been, God, at least 7 years in the making, but I kind of run out of wool, and the wool's not cheap. And this is all natural wool. And I've looked at it online, and I was looking at it, I was buying it from Fred Aldous, you know, on a sort of maybe a couple of packets, you know, every month or so, because it was so expensive. But all they're offering online at the moment are synthetic wools, which
Is it special rug making wool?
well, if you give me a moment, I've got it all in a box so I can show it to you. But
Well,
yeah,
you
can use
just ordinary wool.
You can use ordinary wool, but you just have to cut it to length. But yeah, you can make anything that you can cut to length. I'll show you the stuff in a second. I think I know where it is.
I also got this kind of thing, but I never finish because this is too bored to the same action every time to do the same thing, and so I never finished this rope. I got this package. I hate doing something repeatedly.
Yes, I can
It's very
imagine.
bored because
Yeah.
so I don't need knitting is a very bored thing, I think, because you just every time the action is the same, the movement is the same. I hate knitting.
Oh, I do a lot of knitting because I've got a lot of grandchildren, so and I do quite a lot. But I want to do more painting this year.
Nice.
I started off very well in the first lockdown. I thought, right, I can paint now and not be disturbed or anything, so that was good. But then as time went on, other things took over, and I haven't done as much as I would like to do. So that's my resolution for this year.
What kind of painting do you do?
Watercolor mainly. I don't really like acrylics, but what I would really like to do is love to have a go at oil painting. I've never tried that at all, but that's what I would like to do. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I know I've been with sort of model making. I've been working with acrylics. Actually, I've been working with what I happen to have lying around. I've actually bought very little sort of new stuff during lockdown. And yeah, acrylics are not easy to work with.
No.
They're
not very forgiving either, are they? Really?
No, they're not. I mean, they're okay up to a point, but back in the day, I did get better results using the little pots of enamel, like the humble enamel. Certainly with the kind of things that I'm doing.
Okay, yeah,
I
with
can
models.
certainly adhere better. The acrylics, if I'm say making something out of plastic, the acrylics tend not to adhere properly. I mean, I made a church which is nearly finished, and the first coat of acrylics just kind of bubbled and came off. So in the end, I washed it all off. I ran it under the sink and then gave it a good wash in washing up liquid and dried it out just to get any kind of sort of coating off the plastic. But yeah, talking about rug wools, that's some of my initial designs with the grid. This is the stuff I've been using, pre-cut, as you can see.
Oh, right, pre-cut. Right. Yeah. Oh, well, that will be expensive then if it's
that
not pre-cut, isn't it?
What you can do is, you've got a piece of wood there, and you've got a groove.
Just wind it round.
In the end, you wind it round and run a razor blade or whatever. Now, this is quite long. I did have a narrower one that would cut them to that kind of length. but it seems to have disappeared in all the various moves. But you can probably make something like that, and then whatever wool you have lying around, you can cut.
And do you use there's these kind of rug hook things? Do you use one of those?
Latch hook.
Right.
So basically,
what I've always fancied doing is the you know what they used to do in olden times with a piece of what was Hessian, but they would use a sack, literally a sack, and they kind of loop it. And I've never quite figured how they did it properly. And
I think there's a different
kind of poking it through.
Yes, I've seen that, and I've looked at them, and you can actually, you know, wandering. I love wandering around, or I used to. One of my favourite sort of jaunts out would be, I'd think, oh, hell with it, I'd jump on the train into, you know, short hop into Manchester, wander around the northern quarter, it's all the eccentric shops that you find there. I'd spend ages.
Vintage.
Yeah, vintage and just off the wall. Don't let me loose in Forbidden Planet for a start. that would have been. And Fred Aldous is really good to have a wander around and look at stuff, but you know, keep a careful hold of your purse or your wallet, because it is not cheap in there. Yeah. Especially when I saw a camera behind the counter, and it was a copy of a Russian roll film camera called a Lubitel, and it was sat there like a twin lens that you look down in. You know, you open it up and you look down, and you've got like the screen that projects the image on, and it's upside down and back to front and everything. And you know, you click and then you wind it on, and there was a price tag on, and I'm looking at this cat, and my jaw dropped, and the price on it was something like £270. I said, the price on that Lubitel camera, $270, is that correct? He said, yeah. £270 for a Lubitel. You are partaking of the Michael. So back in the day, those were 25 quid. So they're charging silly money for a really, really expensive.
Well, this is how it's changed. Cameras. Because I used to go to Fred Aldous in the 70s, and you know, you kind of go downstairs, and it was just it's like a huge market, really. And now it's all been tidied up and everything's packaged, whereas it wasn't then. And I used to do macrame, because that's when macrame in the 70s was, you know, the in thing. And so that's why I used to buy all the string, different coloured strings and things. And it was still quite cheap. But of course, if you buy it now, I mean, I know obviously the 70s is a long time, so prices have gone up naturally, but because it's all kind of packaged and neat and tidy, it's a lot more expensive than it should be, really. And because way now more. It's back in fashion.
And I can, you know, from Fred Aldous, if you head down the streets towards Piccadilly, on the next corner is a second-hand camera shop, a specialist second-hand camera shop. You can go in there and buy a second-hand Rolleiflex, which is a very, very good twin lens reflex camera, roll film, a 6x6 centimeter, 2.5-inch square negative camera. Very, very good indeed for under 100 quid. You know, why waste that kind of money on a Lubitel when you can get a proper camera?
Yes, I've
wool latch hook, basically. I don't know how well this is going to show up, but what you do is you have your latch hook, and it goes in there under one of the weaves through your wool on it, pull it back so the latch closes.
Okay.
Move forward, hook round there, pull that through.
Yes, there's a special tool.
And there you have a knot.
Yeah, right. So it knots it for you then.
And that's how you get it, and it makes your fingers, especially the fingers in your non-dominant hand, which is my left hand, that gets, you know, you after doing, say, one of these squares, if you've not been doing it for a while, your fingers are too sore to carry on. So that's one of the reasons why it takes so long. And when I do finish this, it's probably not going on the floor. I'll probably
wall.
It'll go over the back of my sofa, which is where I just received it from. And I originally, before everything went to hell, thought, you know, we can, as a family, we could all do, you know, different squares, but neither my ex or our son had the patience to actually do more than a few stitches on it. So
that's a bit like one of my, I started a patchwork quilt where it's a knitted patchwork quilt, but with patterns in the squares. And I started it for my first grandchild, and my fifth grandchild got it. So it took me that long to do, but I was determined to get it finished for the fifth one.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be a grandfather anytime soon. My son does have a girlfriend, but she's in Paraguay.
Oh, right.
So, you know, he has
So
all
it's
these
not going to be a while. It's going to be a while then, isn't it?
but they're never in this country. The vast majority of them are somewhere in Latin America.
Oh, right. You say you do photography?
Yeah, not so much recently. The only, yeah, I've got all my gear. I've still got all my 35mm gear. I've got camera bodies, Nikon camera bodies, lenses, everything. I don't have the darkroom equipment at the moment. I have, or I thought I had, a Nikon digital SLR, but that seems to have gone AWOL. I've got the lenses, I've got the flash, I've got other accessories. The camera itself, I simply can't find. I can't find it. So at the moment, I'm sort of using a compact.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're so good though, aren't they? Anyway.
Yeah, this
and
one.
What do you have a particular speciality of you know, what you want to take photographs of? Or is it just anything?
Anything. What's going on around? I think you know, it's more of a. You know, I take pictures of whatever takes my interest. If it's a view looking out from under a canal bridge, somebody once said when I went on a walk with them, it was a good friend of mine, and he said, "Yeah, you know, he looked at the pictures I've taken, like holding the camera just level with the water of a reservoir, so he was looking across it at the sort of mist-shrouded hills beyond." He said, "You know what? You've got the eye." Stuff like that, industrial landscapes, even like a brick wall, say in the city centre. I look at this brick wall and thinking, that'd make a good background for something. Some of the murals, you know, it's like almost like I'm sort of recording sort of like a historical document. Sometimes people, you know, I'll usually ask them first, "You mind if I take your picture?" You know, I've had no abuse over it so far, but yeah, like I'll wander through the Northern Quarter and I'll photograph the murals. You see all the different murals on the walls. Yeah. And just what's going on around.
Well, I on a similar vein, but I don't. Well, I do take photographs of them, but I actually sketch them because I do urban sketching in Manchester, or we did until, of course, we can't go. We haven't been in since March. Yeah, and I do, but I again was doing it because for historical reasons, in that, you know, a lot of it is disappearing. So I started off actually in Tameside doing buildings that were at risk. So started to do that, but then I got into Manchester, and so I do urban sketching around Manchester now.
Yeah. I mean, I always had it in my mind to do a photo project in the indoor market in Ashton. Right. And unfortunately, I just, because it was so atmospheric, I'd known it since I was about 5 years old. And it was just higgledy-piggledy, and
You mean that was before the fire?
before the fire,
Before they did it
and
up, yeah.
they moved up and down, and there were various stores that my
Oh, I know.
mum
I
or
used
my
to
dad
go
would
there
go
when I
to.
was a child.
Yeah,
Quite a lot.
and I missed my opportunity because it you know, it burnt down. It didn't burn well. The outside's still there, and they've redone it, but it's not the same as it was.
No, it's not.
So I kind of.
I used to have hot Vimto.
Oh yes,
Hot
yes.
Vimto.
Hot Vimto.
One particular store. Yeah.
One of those sort of little sit-in cafe places,
Yeah.
indie cafe places in there,
Yes,
had
yeah.
the same smell.
Oh,
to
it was tragic when it went up in flames.
It was, yeah. Well, this place had the same smell as my grandmother's kitchen.
Mm. Yeah. Well, talking of, again, filming, my son is down in London and has, I haven't seen him for over a year. And I said to it, he bought a bike at the start of the first lockdown, just to so he could get out and about, get some exercise. And so I said to him, I said, well, what do you want to do? I said, he's going around. I said, what's it like when you go? He said, well, it's deserted. I said, well, you need to film it or take some photographs. I said, first of all. He said, oh, I've got loads of photographs. And I said, well, you need to film it in this third lockdown. So I said, well, you need to film it. So he did. And he went round on his bicycle and he filmed it, and he's put music to it, which is Mad World. Can't remember who it's by, but he put that on it. And he did it he just did it in black and white. And oh, it's surreal, really. But one funny bit of it was because he was on his bicycle and he's got what do they call them? With a fisheye lens, what's it called? GoPro. And it's got a fisheye lens, so you get a wide, range. But he was going along, and you could just see his knuckles on the handlebars. And the road is completely deserted, and he's going through the city of London, famous places. And at one point, he's going along, and then there's a bike lane. And he goes into the bike lane. I thought that was really funny because he had the whole road to himself, but he still went into the bike lane to ride along. Yeah. Yeah. And then he got to Trafalgar Square, which again, deserted, just, I think I saw about 3 people. And, but the Christmas tree was up. But because it's a GoPro and it's a fisheye lens, the tree was kind of bent slightly, and also the column. But then it moved, and then eventually it was bent over the other way. So it's quite fun. So it's a good video. It's on YouTube.
Oh right, how do I find it? I think
if you do what is it under tier 4? No, tier 5. Was it under tier 4 or tier 5?
It might have been tier 4.
It might have been tier 4. It was the first one. So tier 4 COVID London. If you put that in, it's something like that. You might get it. And it's Peter Freeman.
Peter Freeman.
So, but I mean, it's surreal. It really is.
I was looking at talking about YouTube and internet. I look at all these websites posted by sort of urban explorers who explore these abandoned places.
What's he called? Martin Zero.
Yes, Martin Zero.
Yeah.
I like that. I'd like to meet that guy. I'd like to go on.
Yes, so would I. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I used to do things like that myself.
And there's another one, Daft Monkey. Daft Monkey is another one, and he's actually a little bit more local to Tameside, really. He comes to Tameside. Yeah.
Just going to jump in because Lizzie, it's 20.
I know with
12.
Okay.
So yeah, just giving you a bit of a time heads up. Sonia's had to head off.
Okay.
Appointment. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I've nearly finished. I've just got a few more bits to do, but I'll probably carry on this. Yeah, do let me know if you have any questions about design or the glue waxing process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we're going to do the dyeing next week, yeah?
Yeah, we're going to do the dyeing next week. So it would be amazing if you have time to do this part of the process.
Yes, yeah.
That would be amazing.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to do my design on paper, but I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to do anything on the silk until I've seen how the dyeing works, and then I'll have a clearer idea.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I think maybe we could all sort of, I don't know, do a virtual chat sometime.
Yeah, and pick up and check everyone's getting on okay. Ah, yes, sorry, Soping, we're all going to head off shortly, but lovely to see you. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Because I have another meeting.
Oh, good. Well, enjoy your next meeting. I hope we'll
Okay.
see you
See
with
you next week.
a wax
Bye.
design next week.
Yeah, bye.
Okay. Bye.
Lizzie, in terms of drying times, if Andy was to wait and do it all in one go, how long should he give the PVA to dry?
I would just make sure it's at least 24 hours. It's at least a full day. So if you're doing it at night time, don't have a go at dyeing the next day. I would skip a day and do it the day after. Only because with wax you really don't have to do that because it dries instantly. But with the PVA, it just needs that little bit longer to properly set in. Because I do think that it seeps into the fabric a bit more than the dye does. The dye seems to go along the route you want it to, and it stays there and dries really quickly, whereas the PVA takes that little bit longer to dry. So yeah, just a full day really.
Well, that's fine because I am pretty patient, and I'll be working on this. This has taken me the best part of 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
The Parish Church of St. Boris the Bewildered. The kit I did in about an hour, putting it together, well, putting the sub-assemblies together, but the actual painting and weathering is what's taken all the time.
Wow.
Great.
So, yeah. And there's no glazing in the windows because there were no instructions in the kit, actually, so I just had to, okay then. So I need to decide what to do with the windows. But yeah, it's all in the painting. This has been with acrylics.
Yeah.
But
Do you prime it then before you, or do you use like an acrylic medium? Does that help
I haven't yet. I'll probably for the next one because I've not done too many of the plastic kits. But that's possibly an idea. It's certainly the acrylics I've got tend to, if you dilute them at all, they tend not to adhere. Let me just show you one more before we all disappear quickly.
Catherine, I can't find your son's video on YouTube. If you
Can't
to it, if you want to whiz it over, I can put it in the email out to everyone.
Oh, right, okay.
Well, if I find it, I'll let you know. That's part of my station.
Right.
The colour, main colour is actually the colour of the kit, the plastic. And then the green was very carefully painted on.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
You must have a lot of
patience.
I have way too much time on my hands. Especially at the moment, I can't study properly because I was, as you can tell by what's behind my head, I was trying to study chemistry, and then the someone at the OU decided that they were going to change the way everybody logged in, and everybody had to reset the passwords. So I couldn't reset my password, and now my account appears to have been deleted. And all I get back for them is an automatic email response. So I'm thinking, oh, this is doing my head in. Because there are several of their courses that I'm reading. It's just open learn. It's the free stuff. I'm not sort of signed up to a degree or anything yet. So you know, if the worst comes to the worst, I can simply resubscribe, you know, with a different email address and start again, because it's not like I'm in the middle of something. I'd only just started the chemistry. But it must be annoying for people, certainly people who are actually doing modules for degrees, people who might have deadlines. That's why I've not made too much fuss about it, really. Because, you know, like I say, I'm just accessing the free stuff. So, but it just happened at the wrong time, really. Over the holidays, when you know, there was not a lot else for me to do. I thought, oh, I can get on with doing this. And then all of a sudden I'm locked out.
That's technology for you.
Yeah, this is true. But yes, I know it's not just me. It's affected lots of people, staff and students. So I say I've just backed off a little bit, and I'm waiting on now for. I've enrolled on the data analysis enrollment yesterday. I'm just waiting for the links for the maths and English assessments to come through. It's not happening yet.
That's good. Keep busy. Keep your mind occupied.
Oh, this is it. I've got to do something.
Has anyone got any other questions for Lizzie on this first stage of the Batik while
I've
we're here?
been watching her working away there, so
I'm not
and
sure.
I made some notes, so I think I'm okay.
I might have a practice on something else. I might just have a practice with some rights, because I've been saving up. I've got like loads of stubs of candles. I'm thinking I can't just throw them away. I might be able to use them for something. So I thought I can melt them down and do something like this. So I might have a practice on I don't know, a spare piece of cotton or something, or an old T-shirt.
Yeah, we use a mixture of paraffin and beeswax generally when we batik. So I don't know what specifically.
Well, these are all. I expect these are all paraffin wax. You know, they're candles from supermarkets and that. I've got a couple of beeswax candles that I haven't even lit yet, and they're actually beeswax wrapped. The actual beeswax wrapped around the wick, and I thought, well, they're too nice to light. Certainly, if it's just me on my own. So I just keep saving them. They're in a cardboard box labeled Christmas candles, along with, you know, various other things.